In order to look at how these datasets macro command works, we've created two tables, the employee table and the address table with corresponding values in them. So we have the sub macro calls which stores those data. Now we can run this macro by F8 key. So the employee table is created now and the address table is created as well, and there is process of entering personal data in the employee table, and the address table is filled out in the same way. So we have two tables here, the employee table and the address table. Now let's look at how we can combine those tables into one dataset. So let's expand this dataset macro command and double click on add new dataset. Let's name it Dataset employee info, and let's combine those two tables into these datasets. So we need to double click on add table macro command, and here in this dataset employee info, let's put the employee table at first. Then we can copy and paste this macro command and add the address table in this way. Now let's look at results. So I'm gonna set breakpoint here and run. Then by F8 key. Now, in order to look at newly created dataset employee info, we should click on Datasets tab here at the bottom of the screen. As we can see here, Dataset employee info is created with two tables, the employee table and the address table in it. These are exactly the same tables which have been created previously, so now those tables are combined and placed under one name, and in this way we can create as many datasets as we need. For example, let's create one more dataset. Let's name it Dataset Employee Info 2. And let's insert in this dataset employee info 2 only one table, the employee table. So let's run to the breakpoint and then by F8 key. And if we look at the results, we can see two datasets here. The first dataset which combines two tables, and the second one with only one table in it. And in this way we can combine any number of tables into different datasets, and we can use the datasets for different purposes, like for example data export, import, and so on. We'll talk about it later. And one more detail we need to know while working with datasets is that we cannot change data directly in the table when it's united in the dataset. In order to make changes in such a table, we need to extract this table from the dataset replace values as we need and put back into the same data set. For example, here and the dataset employee info, we have two tables. Now let's say in the second table, in the column employee ID and the first record, we need to replace number 1 with number, let's say 33. So in order to change this value, we need to extract the address table from this dataset, and we should use get data table macro command for that. And we can use the same table name for the table when we return it to the dataset, and the system will overwrite existing in the dataset table. Now, in order to change the first record here in the address table, we should use from the memory object tables set field value macro command, and here in the address table and the column employee ID and the first record, we should put 33, and if we run to the breakpoint, then by F8 key here in the address table in the column employee ID, we can see 33 instead of 1. Now we can return this changed address table to the dataset. So we should remove existing table from this dataset. For that, here in the datasets, we have remove table macro command, which will remove address table from this dataset. Let's run again to the breakpoint. Then by F8 key, and if we look at this dataset, we'll see only employee table here, and now we can return address table we just modified in this dataset. So let's double click on add table macro command. So we should add address table to this dataset. Let's run to the breakpoint, then F8 key, and let's look at dataset employee info. And as we can see, there is the second address table here with the changed value and the field employee ID. And one more detail we need to pay attention to is if we add to the dataset the table with the same name which is already exists in there, as it was in our case, the system will overwrite existing in the dataset table, and we won't need to use this remove table macro command. For example, we can block this remove table macro command in order to skip it. And if we run, we'll see that this add table macro command will overwrite existing in the dataset table, and we'll see modified address table here, because as you may remember, when we extracted address table from the dataset, we indicated the same name for the table after we return it to this dataset.